Well, Lord have mercy. There is a whole lot of yammering going on about Sony cameras this afternoon. How do I turn around here? So you're going to have to bear with me as I drive, trying to figure out where the hell I'm going. So yeah, the A7R5. I watched the Sony presentation of it this morning. Also got a chance to watch Gerald Undon's review of it. He definitely has some of the better reviews out there. I think him and Philip Bloom probably are the two best ones I can think of. You know, and then I've read a lot of noise on forums and YouTube and Facebook groups and stuff like that. It's funny because the A1 guys don't think it's anything special. You know, I'm gonna stick with my A1 because it's got, you know, 1 million frames a second and, you know, and all this and all that. Everybody else thinks it's awesome, you know, and it's something that's completely new and, you know, groundbreaking and all that. And see, I mean, my perspective is it's kind of somewhere in between those two things. So I do own and use daily an A1. I have owned an A7R5, which was my main stills body for a couple years, shooting interiors. And I also own an A7R5, which honestly, I think in retrospect, I probably wouldn't have bought. You know, because I have a hard time fitting the A7R5 into my current system. So what are my thoughts on the A7R5? Well, I think it fixes what was wrong with the A7R4, and I think that's the perspective that is the right one, you know, for those who have a lot of experience with all of these bodies. I don't think anybody expected it to be as fast or faster than the A1. That's just not reasonable. You know, the A1 has a stacked sensor. You know, it's significantly more expensive. But, you know, I'm glad to see that Sony is putting some of their latest, greatest features in the A7R5. So the focus breathing compensation. People tend to like the dial on top where you can switch between stills mode and video and S and Q. I'm kind of impartial to that. I don't really care either way. The thing that I think is amazing, though, is the screen. How it I prefer tilt screens, just the ones that tilt out for photography. And for a stills camera, that's one of the things I like about the A1. Even though the A1 screen is pretty junk, I like that it tilts and that it doesn't fully articulate. I tend not to like those screens as much on the cameras that I have with them on there. But it looks like the A7R5 has a fully articulated and tilting screen, and Gerald especially said that he really liked that about it. So as a stills camera, like I said, I think it fixes a lot of what was wrong with the A7R4, and that's mostly having to do with throughput. Now, granted, that is something that I rarely see anybody test online, including Gerald, the actual throughput of a camera. That's something important to me as I tether wirelessly, and so I want to know what kind of range I have to my iPad that I'm tethered to through the Sony Imaging Edge app. I want to know how quickly it will download those previews to the iPad. I want to know while it's downloading the previews to the iPad if I can still adjust settings and then fire my next frame, you know. And so, for instance, if I'm doing a flash ambient composite, and let's say that I am faced up against a window, and so I know that my flash is going to create reflections in that window. In that situation, I will typically flash on this side, flash on that side, so I can mask them against each other in post to you know, to get rid of those reflections. I don't need to see my preview to do that. If I know that my exposure is good on one, it's going to be good on the other, you know. So it's things like that, and those aren't particularly popular review topics because I don't think a lot of people really use it like that, you know, but people shooting real estate and interiors tend to. So am I going to get one? Probably not. Well, let me qualify that. If I did not already have the A7S3, I would most likely purchase the A7R5 as a secondary body, and one specifically as primary function to do interiors video, versus the A7S3. A7S3 is still a more powerful video camera than the A7R5, really just by function of its sensor being much less resolution and therefore having a much faster read speed, so it, enabling it to do 4K 120 and 4K 60 without a crop and all that. From what I've seen, the A7R5 does do 4K 60. It's with a 1.2 times crop. That's fine. You can throw the Sony 14mm lens on there and get like a 16mm perspective or so. That's great. For a real estate video, I'll take that all day. However, at a 61 megapixel sensor, those are really small photo sites. The pixel density is up there. So, and that's what we have yet to really see is any kind of real world tests from non-paid or sponsored YouTubers that are out there actually working with it. So as much as I respect Gerald, and those like him, Gerald is not a working photographer. He goes out and he shoots at charts, and he does a lot of very useful things to tell us some very useful things about cameras. But at no time is he out there actually working with with a workload like I'm out working every day, with these tools, and I can tell you a lot of things about these tools that a reviewer like Gerald could not, just because of the type of way that I'm using it is so different from his. So anyway, don't want this to be rambling, just thought I'd get in on the A7R5 chatter. I think it's brilliant, and I think it's brilliant as long as you keep it in context. I think it is looks to be a world better than the A7R4. It looks to have fixed what was wrong with the A7R4. It looks to have many features that are not found even on the flagship A1. It probably has a better screen than the A1. It's cool that it has a lot of things that are better than the A1 also. It's not as fast as the A1. And as it pertains to actual practical workflows with working photographers, that's a big deal. It's not as fast as the A1. The sensor doesn't read out as fast for my uses. The maximum mechanical flash sync speed is not going to be as high as the A1, so it's a 1/250th I saw versus a 1/400th with the Alpha 1. So, for those reasons, it would not replace the A1 in my daily kit. However, one thing that really makes me excited about is what's coming down the pike, right? Because Sony has had they've done this, I think, better than anyone else, including Canon, when they roll out a feature on a new camera, it ends up being on every other camera, that comes out. So the A7 IV had the focus breathing compensation is a good example of this, right? And everybody that bought an A1's pissed off. It's a flagship camera, and you didn't give us this. But you know what? Every camera since then has had it. So I don't know if there's a technical limitation, as it pertains to the way the A1 is, is put together, why that can't be implemented in a firmware feature. But, Sony is really good at not only trickling down advanced features from their flagships to lesser models, but as new features are introduced, just spreading it across, the S-Logs are a good example of that. The focus breathing is a good example of that. This new articulating flip screen is probably going to be on every one of their cameras. They're really good at doing that. So it makes me excited for the future. I will probably have more to say about the A7R5 as we all learn more about it. Right now, I don't plan on buying it. Maybe there'll be like an aha moment where it's like, oh wow, if I get this, it really, will solve this problem. But as somebody who already owns an A1, an A7 IV, A7S3, I don't see room in my lineup for A7R5. I don't know to what end it would serve. So anyway, let me know what you think down in the comments. Thanks for listening to me ramble, and I'll see ya.